What's up, guys? We're gonna real beats. Today I'm gonna be showing you guys 3 theories you can use to improve your melodies and beats. If you guys haven't subbed already or turned plus dummies, to do so because it does help it a lot. Let's hop right into it. So first things first, I'm just grabbing a scale, and then I'm gonna just show you the sound I'm using. So we can just let's use a C sharp minor, whatever. We can always transpose if the bass is too low. And this is the sound I'm using, just a little guitar. All right, so let's get started with the first little tip. All right. All right, so the main tip I want to give is using guitar theory for your melodies, right? And what I mean by that is using the patterns and rhythms of how the guitar is played. So this doesn't mean, only use a guitar sound. You can use whatever sound you want. You can use a trumpet if you want. But using this method is going to make it a lot easier to make melodies because there isn't much thought into it, right? It's just steps you take, right? The only hard part is just making one chord, and I'm gonna show you just the easiest way to do it. So one other thing I need to know is we're going to be using like intervals to do this, right? So what I mean by that is, if you don't know what interval is, in a nutshell, it's just this. And I'm gonna make a melody with it just to, show you. This is pretty much what it is. Right? And there's really no chords involved. So what we need to do is find a little chord for our bass. So we could just go one up. Instead of doing it like this, we could just go one backwards. All right, because we know this works. All right, so now let's use the rule of thirds. And the reason I'm using rule of thirds is because I want to make sure that this beat is rappable, right? And basically they're just using 3 notes, main notes, and you just copy this one, right? I guess we could keep that. So let's focus on our first one now. Let me make this a little bit larger. So all we need to do now is just copy this, and we're gonna do this for the rest, but I'm gonna just do it for this one. And then all you need is just a note or 2 notes. So the starting one, I just usually just go up 2 notes like this. And then what we need to do is pull this up an octave. All right, and this should be quantized. Now this needs to be quantized if you want to follow exactly. But what we're gonna do now is pretty much offset this. So we can offset the first one, so the lowest one. And then what you want to do after this is do the wiggle. Now the wiggle is basically going from this note to this note back to this note, okay? Now, how do you know where to put it? You just literally put it at the end of this note, and then this one at the end of that note. And then at the end, you could put whatever note you want. So we could let's skip this one and go down to B. And let's see how that sounds. All right, now if you want it to sound a little bit better, you want to make your notes bleed. So I like to copy these and just stretch them out. Something like this, okay? So now let's move on to the next one. So you should know the steps to this, right? And if you want to fill stuff in, you can kind of, fill in notes as you go, but this is the gist of it. So let's keep going. So for this one, let's use F, right? And that's all we're going to use besides that last note. And I hope I'm zoomed in enough. Same thing here, it's offset. And then let's just use E. We don't even need to use another note. Let's use E. And let's go back up to that F. Make sure the distances are right. And then we can go right back to that B. And let's make sure we put this in. All right, and stretch this out. Boom. All right, and I'm taking longer on this part because it's the main part of the video, right? So now we need to pull these up so we can see. So now with this one, let's use B. Perfect spot. Let's pull this up and let's just copy these over. Save some time. All right, and this is super hard. So let's try using, I don't know, we could use E again, maybe. Real quick, I just want to show how I got to E because I'm sure people might want to know. Basically, from this note, I just created a chord backwards, except I just forgot to explain it. All right, so skip this note, hit here, skip this note, hit here, and that's how I got to E. Let's make sure this is right. Pull this one back. Let's go back to this B. And we can just copy this over. And then we just bleed them, make them bleed. Make sure it doesn't overflow too much. Just make all our melodies bleed, right? And so now we have a guitar melody. right, so what I'm gonna do is actually put in key switches down here, but I'm gonna do that off camera to save time. But that's pretty much the gist of the video. And then I have two other little tips I want to show y'all while making the beat. All right, so what I want to do now is actually start with the 808 and then do the drums, because the other tips that I have for you actually involve making the melody off of the drums. All right, so let's just go ahead, and I already got this loaded up, and throw in, let's go a little bit higher. We know that E and A are our bass notes, right? Because those are the only bass notes we have. So we can just. Then let's take these, pull these up an octave, and let's pull these down an octave. See how that sounds? I don't know what it's doing. Okay, I like that. So now let's move on to like the actual drums. All right, so I might fast forward through a few parts of this, but I'm gonna try to keep it fairly real time. So okay, let's go into the clap. I'm gonna turn this off. You can see just with this melody, the beat is pretty much, it's done already, pretty much, right? Just keep adding stuff. All right, now let's just edit this hi-hat real quick. Probably want to mess with the velocity a little bit. Maybe we could add some right here. All right, I'm not gonna do too much in detail. I'm just gonna keep the video going. So right here, we could just add a little something. And I think that'll just be fine, at least for this video. All right, so now the drums are done. Okay, so now we can go ahead and go back to our melody. All right, now we have our drums, so we can move on to the next tip, which is a 2-in-1. And the first one would be basically playing your melody off of your drums. And this is gonna create a little bit more bounce. It's not gonna be super noticeable, but you'll feel it. And then the second part would be using silence for anticipation, which will make your melodies a little bit more catchy. So let's go ahead and go in here. So what I like to do is usually start on the grid. Now you can start anywhere you want, but for me, I like to start like right here. And like this little area right here, if you add your like notes here, it'll kind of create a little bit of bounce, and I'll show you what I mean. Right, and you can see like the beat is going back and forth between the melody, the 808 and the, the snares and stuff, right? And I'll play it without. Right, and it's just something needs to be filled there. So we can use, let's actually just do something like this. All right. Now, since we got this bounce going, it's not done, right? So we could leave this open little area right here, okay? To create anticipation. This is what I mean by using silence to kind of make it a little bit more catchy, right? Because you're gonna want to hear this, right? Right? It feels complete this way, but if we take that out and maybe we can move this over here, maybe like this, right? We'll get that satisfaction over here, right? And then it just repeats and repeats. So what we could do is actually maybe do something like this. And this should play off of this part, or let me see, where is it? Like where this stuff is bouncing from, like right here. It should play off of that right here. You see how much bounce that's giving? All right, so that's all I want to show on this part. So let's move on to the last little tip. All right, so now this next part or tip is basically how to use accents. All right, and we're gonna apply everything we learned up here to these as well. But pretty much what I'm gonna show you just how to kind of fuse them in your beat so they're not too distracting, right? So a way you could do this is do the same thing, like play off of your drums, okay? But we want to start with like a bass note. So we can go here and we can just pick any of these notes. Let's just use B and this E. So I'm gonna copy this, and I just chose those two because of the range. And let's go here. And what I like to do is try to find a drum like the 808 or like a clap. So place this about a clap, maybe turn this up. And then I'm sure the 808 might hit here. So you can see how this kind of meshes in with that 808. And that's what we kind of want. We don't want this to distract from the main melody, right? We just want it to kind of improve a little bit, right? So what we can do is just add 2 other notes. And I'm gonna even go off of the grid. Let's stretch these out. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, and I'm hearing a note somewhere here. So we're gonna use that same method earlier and not put it there. So we can create satisfaction over here. Maybe right here. And then let's maybe go back up to this G and see how that sounds. Right, you can see how this sounds real good when it's really not even a good melody, right? But it's just because we use that silence, right? So that is pretty much all for this video. So I'm gonna just play the beat one more time. All right, so that's it for this video. Hopefully this helped out. Make sure you guys like and subscribe if y'all new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.